Everybody, so today's session is around enterprise AI now, next, and future. And we are going to be joined with Chris Hillman from Teradata Quest, Nima Bedi from NVIDIA, and Anthony Prasad from AWS. But before we go into the roundtable, I'll just walk you through some of the key trends of what we have observed in enterprise AI. So the first key trend, what we have seen is around enterprise vector store, which is helping to unlock the potential of unstructured data. So you must have also seen about this in the keynote today. So what it does, right? The enterprise currently, they collect lots and lots of unstructured data. So this unstructured data could be related to text, voice, call transcripts, and they all come in various multimodal formats. You can have it in audio, video, images. So what enterprise vector store does, it helps to unlock the value and potential which is hidden in this unstructured data. And you can also combine the enterprise vector store with enterprise feature store. So essentially what you are doing is you are combining unstructured data with structured data, and you can create some very powerful use cases. And one of the very interesting use cases, what we have seen in enterprise is augmented customer 360 degree. So this is like taking a classical customer 360 degree, which has got structured data, and then you kind of augment it with unstructured data. Now, enterprise vector store, nowadays in the age of agentic AI, generative AI, is not like nice to have, it is a must. There are various use cases which depend on enterprise vector store. Enterprise vector store is the base of the foundation for, let's say, millions or billions of unstructured objects. And in addition, it also makes sure that all these use cases are also scalable. All these use cases, what I've listed over here, are going to place a huge demand on vector store for inferencing. So it's very important that the vector store is scalable, which in turn is making all these use cases also quite scalable. Now, the second trend, what we are seeing is around AI Factory. So AI Factory is all about a dedicated environment for a faster AI innovation. And let me explain, like, what do I mean by this dedicated environment? Why do we need it? Based on my personal story. So before I was in product marketing, I was working as a data scientist, and I used to develop a lot of cutting-edge models. But then I always face this organization challenge that if I have to deploy an AI model in a classic enterprise data warehouse or a data analytic platform, it was difficult. Now, all these platforms, they are under strict SLAs and DBAs, they are not always convinced that to deploy a model which they have not seen before. So what AI Factory does, right, it actually gives you the freedom to experiment, innovate, and go faster. So AI Factory is basically like three components over here. So we have an AI workbench. AI workbench is helping the AI developers to rapidly come out with and develop models. It has got all the tools to really accelerate the development of models. You also have a database engine, which is ensuring that the operationalization of all these models is highly scalable. And then nowadays, all the use cases, state-of-the-art use cases use GPUs, and you can leverage NVIDIA GPUs through AI microservices. And if you already have your GPUs, you can also bring those GPUs to the AI Factory. Now, the third trend is around agentic AI. Like, it's the top trend this year. But I can tell you that implementing agentic AI in enterprise is complex. There are certain challenges, and first is all around the trusted data. These agents, they need trusted data. They need data which is integrated to ensure that the output of these agents is trustable. Also, these agents, they do not have a business knowledge to solve a specific problem. They can solve any generic problem, but if you ask them to solve a problem which is specific to your enterprise, they would not be able to do so. And third is, all these agents, as it was mentioned today also in the keynote, they never sleep. They are going to work 24/7, which is going to place huge amount of workload on a classical analytic platform, which in turn can lead to cost and performance issues. So what we recommend is to have a stack which is going to make these agents highly efficient. So at the top of the stack, you have this agent builder, which is enabling the agent builders to build multi-agent architectures rapidly. Then you also have this contextual intelligence layer, which is a combination of large language model, expert prompts, as well as context, which actually ensures that the agent is able to understand the enterprise context and solve the business problem for a specific enterprise, and it is not, let's say, giving just very generic responses. And then you also have this MCP server, which gives the agent access to different tools which are required, like data analysis, predictive tools, prescriptive tools. And then you also have this data model, which provides a way to provide these agents and integrated and harmonized data. And then all this is based on Teradata Vantage, which provides this platform where you can operationalize agents with very high efficient, as well as they are also cost efficient. And in addition, you also need an agentic AI strategy. So here, what we recommend is that you should go for a strategy which is based on business use cases, where you are going to develop some expert agents. And these expert agents are going to rely on an intelligent framework and industry data models to come out with autonomous decisions which are very informed, and they take into account the trusted data as well as the business knowledge which is in an enterprise platform. Now with this, I will invite my guest for the roundtable. So Chris, Nima, and Anthony, please come to the stage. And we are going to do a Q&A. And please keep also questions ready, because we have a very interesting panel and you do not want to miss the opportunity to ask questions to this panel. Welcome, Chris. Welcome, Nima. Welcome, Anthony. Thanks for being part of this panel. So the first question which I would like to start, maybe with Anthony, because you're on the other side of the sofa. So how do you see the enterprise, well, how do you see the future of enterprise AI?
I think just to what you just showcased in your slides, I think where we're seeing customers look at is, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Sorry for the technical difficulty. But I think we have a lot of customers who have structured data, unstructured data, and we need to vectorize that and store in a vector store. That's the first thing. And I think once you have that, the ability to use the best of in-class infrastructure that AWS provides, either with Bedrock, right, where you can access the LLM of your choice, or SageMaker, for example, where you can tap into some of the other inferencing models of the GPUs that NVIDIA provides. You can definitely optimize what you're trying to do. And I think that's a starting point. But I think to add on to that, we're going to talk about a little bit about the framework that you just described in the conversation. But that's a start, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you were here on Monday, but we talked about the evolution of AI, starting with AlexNet, which was kind of the first contact moment for AI, and that led to perceptive and predictive AI, which eventually led to generative AI. And we have to thank OpenAI for that iPhone moment where we can finally touch AI and realize what it is. We're now in the third cohort, the third phase of evolution, which is agentic AI, and post that we'll probably see physical AI. Each of these builds on top of each other. Each of them is an order to 2 orders of magnitude more potential for us. So today, I think where we are is there's a lot of experimentation with generative AI moving into agentic, and businesses are starting to realize the potential of AI, what it can do, how it can reason, how it can synthesize a great corpus of data. And they're feeling comfortable and in the ability for AI to actually begin taking actions on behalf of users. So think of all of the enterprise IT tasks or enterprise application systems or tools or processes that could potentially be automated. Anything that you do that's repetitive, anything that's mundane that could be automated, but in an intelligent fashion, in a learning fashion. So not just an if this, then that, which is kind of the old way of very deterministically modeling everything, now via an imperative command. Right, so think of all the back office IT processes that we have, onboarding a new employee, probably 300 item checklists. How many things can be automated through an agentic system that makes the entire employee onboarding experience a lot more pleasant? And I think everyone else have kind of gone through where on day one, you still don't have email, you don't have access to your Schwab account, you don't have access to your SSP. It takes a couple of days, maybe a few weeks. What if that could all be completely automated day one, the minute you step through the door? So there's a lot of potential here. And we're seeing a lot of it actually start not in the consumer space, but in the enterprise space. So starting with data providers and data platforms to make the data available to AI applications. That means being able to take unstructured and structured data and turn it into vector embeddings and being able to store and retrieve and re-rank that data for AI. And then also in the large enterprise, like the back office IT systems, the collaboration systems, the communication systems, to make them AI ready, AI friendly, and AI enabled. So that tide, that kind of rising tide, will lift all the other boats, and you'll see it very quickly in the tools that you use. You don't really have to go do anything different. You'll just turn on Vantage Cloud, and it'll have a whole bunch of new capabilities that weren't there yesterday. Same thing with ServiceNow, same thing with SAP, same thing with Adobe, for example.
Perfect, yeah. Chris, as per you?
Yeah, and I mean, I still think there's a long way to go with the smaller language models. You know, I always think when we're looking at customer communications, you don't need to send all your customer communications to something that could rewrite them as the next work of Shakespeare. If all you're trying to do is topic detection. Okay, so this idea of task-specific, smaller language models, there's a long way to go with that, and we're getting great success with it, with working with AWS and NVIDIA at the moment. Yeah, and I think talking about vector stores, that's directly relevant there because embedding models actually can be surprisingly small. You don't need a ChatGPT or a Gemini to do that. You can do it with something very small and targeted in a database.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting, and this also reminds me of a paper which was recently published by NVIDIA, which states that why the small language models are going to be the key.
So and it's like, take that with a grain of salt. So you're going to have large foundation models from providers like Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, and then you will blend them with smaller form factor that are domain-specific models. Some you'll get off the shelf. There's a bevy of great companies that are starting these, whether it's legal, financial services, healthcare, life sciences. But then the tools that used to be only available to researchers are now available to the rest of us. And we can start building and training and fine-tuning and reinforcement learning our own models so we can teach them our business objects and our proprietary customer formats and customer data. And I can then keep that model for myself. I don't have to share it with the rest of the world, but it powers a lot of my AI applications that are part of my company, my enterprise, my application. So it's going to be an and, not an or, and it's going to be really exciting over the next couple of years, especially.
Chris, you and your team are doing a lot of POCs in the field, which includes Teradata, NVIDIA, and AWS. Can you talk about these POCs and what value you are seeing by partnering with NVIDIA as well as with AWS?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to look this up to make sure I get the words right, because I don't want to get the brand wrong. But we're now part of NVIDIA's Enterprise AI Factory Validated Design. That's exactly the right word, isn't it? Okay. So you know, the thing is, we are integrating tightly, and I think if you were listening to the Shazam guy, he talks about friction, and part of what we've done is eliminating that friction so that you haven't got to choose which model, NVIDIA have sorted that for you, the microservices are there, and through NIM, so it's really much more seamless now, and that's really helping. And we've done things like the AI for customer intelligence, like you'll see later in the week. We've worked with manufacturers and working with sensor data, so all kinds right across the domain of use cases. Yeah.
So this also brings me to a next interesting point, which is around on-premise versus cloud. Like few years back, everything was cloud, and now we are seeing that on-premise is coming back. So how do you see that balance between on-premise and cloud? And specifically also the question to my AWS colleague on how do they see the strategy of customer who want to do both? But maybe I can start like from Chris, then to Nima, and to Anthony. Yeah.
So I can say what I think about on-premise, and Anthony can correct me at the end. Yeah. By the way, despite what Anthony thinks, I am not related to Ricky Gervais, all right? If anyone else was thinking that, you can stop thinking that now.
No, I can't stop thinking.
No, you can't stop thinking it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've always had a strong on-premise business, and we've got a strong cloud business, and hybrid is very important. And I think the key thing about the offering is that most of the innovation is happening in the cloud. And if you're going to have an on-premise system, if you're going to have a hybrid system, you need to be able to bring some of that innovation to the on-premise system as well. So I think that's the key thing to remember. But I guess it depends. I mean, it's mostly on like the highly regulated industries and certain parts of the world where data sovereignty is a really key issue for them. that's where you see this quite strongly. Yeah.
Yeah, we see kind of globally it's both. So I've heard the word repatriation, but I think that's the wrong word. Data exists everywhere. Historically, it's been on the cloud. It's also been in data silos. It's been on-premise. It's been in sovereign states. It's been protected by GDPR where you just can't move it. What we've noticed is that data has a lot of gravity, so it's a lot easier for AI to come to data than it is for data to come to AI. And we've seen a lot of innovation in the data platform providers like partners like Teradata that have basically added AI capabilities to make the data platforms a lot more AI friendly. So practically speaking, the way we're working with Teradata is specifically the NVIDIA Nemotron and NIM modules that power things like embedded retriever, document extract like PDF extraction, dplot, OCR, into generating the vector embedding, storing them inside of Teradata Vector Store, using the same retriever to pull it out, to run through a re-ranking model, through a reasoning model, and then a guardrailing system to make the data now available to whatever applications that I want to build. And then as I get into building applications that use my data, the best place to start, the easiest place to start is on Amazon. I can instantiate servers, I have access to GPUs. If I don't want to get too sophisticated, there's an incredible catalog of models available through Bedrock and SageMaker. I can just build all my applications. And now I have easily bridged the two, depending on, based on where my data is and where I want to run my applications. And the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. So I think the key here is you have choice, a lot more choice today than you may have thought you would have had before. And that gives you a lot more flexibility into building and adopting new models and new generative applications for your business, whether it's a consumer-facing application or it's something that you want to use internally for your own employees to make their lives a little bit easier, to make them much more productive.
Yeah. Antonio?
No, great. I knew this question was coming up. That's why I decided before getting on stage, we should have done open mic, when we had a delay here. But I think AWS, from our perspective, we always love the customers that have our data in AWS cloud. But I think to Nima's point, if you go back a few years ago when we didn't have the generative AI trend and the concept, I think in traditional ML, we used to bring the data to the ML systems. We would force customers to structure the data in a certain format, a certain way. We would have to write jobs, Spark or Scala, whatever job, or even a SQL job, to translate that data model into something that could be consumed by a traditional ML system. But today, our technology has advanced so much that we're telling customers, listen, we'll bring AI to your data. We will bring the power of AI ML to your data. So you can keep your data, right, wherever you want to keep it. If it's extremely regulated, you can keep it in an on-prem resource. We have services like AWS Outposts, which exist where customers have the flexibility of moving your data between two worlds. And you don't have to necessarily move all your workloads. Because like Nima said, you have the ability of running applications at scale and super sub-millisecond latency. If your application relies on sub-millisecond latency and you have data on an on-prem resource and you're trying to combine that, you're definitely going to hit roadblocks. So we advise customers, hey, this is our strategy. We're bringing the power of AI to your data. But if you want to optimize on not just costs and sub-millisecond latency, try out with POCs. That's the whole point. We have funding programs. We have experts who can help you get started with POCs. And what's to lose? They don't pay for it. We actually are partnering with Teradata in a workload migration program. So if you have workloads that are on-prem and you actually want to move them to cloud, we offer credits to even do the experimentation. So the customers have nothing to lose. I would say, you know what? Try it out. If it works, we're happy. We're all happy.
Yeah, I agree. So a question to you, Antonio, so agree that many of the customers are trying like AI POCs, but when they have to really scale, what kind of challenges do you think the enterprises are facing?
I think when it is scalability, a number of things are involved, right? Like we talked about small language models, large language models, and I think it's really important to define what vertical application you're trying to build, right? Whether if it's financial services, it could be fraud detection, anti-money laundering, right? Or in healthcare and life sciences, you talk about patient diagnostic reports, where you have data from a patient XYZ from 5 years ago,
treatment information, clinical trials. These are all proprietary patient data. And we can actually load them in knowledge bases on Bedrock. And before that, we can actually vectorize them as vector embeddings in Teradata, and then load the domain-specific knowledge on Bedrock. And with that, you have the ability to not only combine data that is sitting outside cloud, but also within. And then you figure out what model works for you. Try out techniques like A/B testing. Start low, start from the least optimized, the least cost-efficient model, and then figure your way up. Do trial and error method. I mean, there's a lot of experiments that we have to do, right? As data scientists and data engineers and recovering data engineers, if there are any in the room, we all have to experiment. Yeah. So I think it's all about finding that balance, right? Data security is important. Bedrock, by the way, is private link enabled by default, and you guys are integrated with us. So there is a platform for customers to test it out and then figure out the results from there.
Nima, as per you, the challenges which enterprise face while scaling AI?
Yeah, I think the first problem Chad kind of talked about was the cold start problem, right? So where do I start? How do I begin?
Yeah.
And there's a couple of particular challenges. The first one is I don't know the tools. How do I access the tools? And I think what's really neat is that Teradata has effectively curated the underlying technologies that you would have to use, but built them into Teradata. So your interface is just Teradata. You don't have to go anywhere else to do anything to be able to use AI with your data. That's number one. Number two is, we kind of talked about this on Monday, was that there was an MIT study that talked about the rate of success with AI projects, but if you read the article properly, what it says, about 63% of properly funded, properly scoped projects are actually successful with AI. And the factors there are the right use case, so back office, procurement, financial, accounting. Those are usually much more successful than kind of front office projects. It didn't take into consideration the shadow AI, the fact that you're already using ChatGPT or Perplexity or Gemini in your daily work. It talked about not having the right resources, like training people or buying something off the shelf is actually a lot more biased towards success than if you want to build everything yourself. So I would say if you can scope a couple of use cases and projects properly, fund them accordingly, understand what the success KPIs are, you'll be a lot more successful. And once you've done one or two projects, success will beget success, and you'll have a lot more ease of adaptability for your enterprise and being able to build on top of success. So get out, experiment. That's the greatest thing you could do. Don't worry about failure or success. But when you come to actually funding a proper enterprise class AI application or suite of them, scope them accordingly. It's make sure that they're going to be successful and resource them the right way.
Yeah, I think as Chad also mentioned in the keynote that it's better to start with 2 projects rather than 50 projects.
Exactly, yeah. Scope it down to 2. 2 is a lot easier than 50, but we work with companies where there are 30 different AI teams that don't talk to each other. They're trying to all solve the same problem. But if they get in the same room, they could potentially share technology, form a baseline platform, make some common decisions, and over the long term, that'll make them a lot more successful.
Yeah. Chris, you must have seen a lot of challenges, right, in the field?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going to paraphrase the ServiceNow guy this morning, but he said something like, if you don't fix your data, instead of ending in a big bang, your AI project's going to end in a performance review, which I thought was just perfect. And of course, bad data has been a problem we've been fixing for 45 years. So I think the problem with it is it's not very interesting and it's really tough. But I think in the agent world, it's given us a really good opportunity now. Things like missing data, data quality, the agents can do that and they can check it continuously. Yeah. So, that's going to make a big difference. But mirroring what Nima said, I see 3 problems. One is not understanding the business problem you're supposed to be solving in the first place properly, and then not understanding the ROI it's going to drive if it is successful. It's not having a clear route to production in the first place. When you start a project, you should know how it's going to go into production. Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems is resistance from the end users. You've got to bring people along for the ride. You can't, here's a system, you're going to use it. Because people will always be the problem and find a way around of not doing this.
I think a lot of end users actually would welcome it. Because I think about all the complex IT systems that we work with, sometimes they're a little bit hard to use. But having an agent or a chatbot next to it that I can ask a question, how do I do this? What's the procedure for such a thing, and have that programmed in, makes it a lot easier for me to figure out how to like submit my timesheet or do a purchase order or submit a receipt with X number of guests for dinner. Like, there's a lot of complexity in some of the tools that we have that are part of just the legacy of the way they were originally designed. And AI can really bridge the gap and make it a lot easier to use without a lot of effort.
Yeah, and sort of pushing that augmented angle, the assistant angle rather than the replacement.
And the data quality is a big part. Like, you could clean the data, make it completely sanitized before you go into something, or you can have the data that you already have, but then use the model's reasoning engine to be able to parse through some of that and pull more signal out of the noise. Like, if you put a reasoning engine, they're actually sophisticated enough to know what's probably higher quality data versus lower quality and filter those out. So there's a lot of tools out there that are available to us now that we can start using.
Yeah, very interesting. Before we go to the closing thoughts, I would like to ask to our audience, if you have any questions, just let us know. Steve would like to just see if anybody's got a question.
Any question, just raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you.
I'll ask the first question. Somebody asked this in the hallway: do I have to buy NVIDIA to use Teradata? And the answer is no. It's Teradata. It's just Teradata. Our technologies are under the hood. They're basically represented and curated for you as end users. So you're using Teradata. You start with Teradata. You end with Teradata.
Thank you. Any question? We got AWS, NVIDIA, and Teradata. Any questions?
Let me ask a question of the audience. How many people use ChatGPT or Perplexity in their daily lives? Okay, that's nearly everybody. Was that corporate mandate or your own decision? Own decision? Okay. Would you like it to be corporate mandate? Like, if that was a tool that was available to you? Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. What are some of the use cases that you see that you would really like to see AI help make your lives easier? Sales, marketing, IT, finance, procurement, content generation.
I think there's a lot of time spent on PowerPoints, right? A lot of time spent on PowerPoints that you could, efficiently fix, right? But with the three of you here, I guess from I kind of try and think about the agentic AI strategy and where it's going, right? I think we talk a lot about MCP, but Google has recently come out with A2A as well, right? And so when we start thinking about protocol integrations, right, you start to really take a look at how Teradata, AWS, NVIDIA are all really honed in on the kind of compute and memory space, right? When we think about enterprise POCs, have the three of you started hearing companies that are really trying to figure out, all right, we have an agentic architecture and system strategy that may be being put out by the open AIs of the world, right? How are you each kind of thinking about telling customers that here is how you should really think about ROI when and adapting to the ever kind of changing landscape of interoperability, memory, CPU, et cetera. GPU also.
Great question, by the way. In fact, one of the first things we do when customers come to us and say, hey, we'd like to test it out, we want to do this POC, I think the first thing is we scope out, what is the timeline they're looking at. Some customers are like, hey, this is time sensitive, right? We need to deploy this application within a couple of months, right? And so then there's an accelerated motion, right? So then we look at what they're trying to build, and if there's an existing architectural pattern or a framework out there that's leveraging, let's say in this example, Teradata, Vantage Cloud and AWS Bedrock, right? If we have that ability to map what your use case, or the customer's use case, of the existing architecture. In fact, if you go to AWS documentation, there's a prescriptive guidance. So you look at reference architectures for specific vertical solutions. So maybe we're already doing the heavy lifting for you because someone else has deployed a similar architectural pattern. And the GitHub repo is out there, the services that they use is out there, the diagram is out there. So you can rinse and repeat. That way, you don't have to spend time on figuring out something from scratch. You hit your timelines because you're going to be able to do the POC, get it working within a week and a half or more. And then if all is well, if it passes the checks, you can even get it to production. So that's one. But if it's a completely new problem, and if you have time on your hands, there's a number of different ways you can address this. Like there's so many services out there and tools that you can leverage to the best of your advantage. Now, if you're a customer who's saying, you know what, I don't care about the SLA. You know what, like maybe for content generation, let's pick that example, right? So you have a deadline 2 weeks from now. So, and I'm like, okay, let's look at where your data is. Can we structure this data in such a data model that is consumable for my end report? Let's say I would generate this report automatically every week, Monday morning, 8 a.m. as an example. You can automate that through an entire agentic workflow, right? So it's really about getting to the details. And if you've listened to this conversation in the last few days, it's all about data, right? It starts with the data. As long as you have the clean data set with you, and then you might even find insights that you didn't look for. You can tap into untapped insights from the data that you've curated. Yeah. So that's the way I'd approach it. Yeah.
That's a great example. We've heard Jensen talk about agents as employees. Eventually, it's getting to a point where we can't hire people in the countries, the geographies with the skill sets that we need. Is there a future that potentially they could be part of our workforce, part of our kind of corporate resource? And absolutely. I'll give you a practical example where agents would be tremendously useful as a recovering software engineer. I remember, like, for example, if a customer submits a trouble ticket and it files it as a Zendesk ticket, and then you can build agents that can slurp the data out of Zendesk and generate Jira tickets that are specific issues. And then from there, do background research on how many times have we seen this problem, and therefore give that problem a specific weight. And then from Jira, another agent can create a GitHub issue that bumps up into my backlog. And the issue can then have another agent that determines who is the right engineer to work on it. So I put it in their particular backlog. I've basically automated a customer issue through a remediation path that would have taken possibly days, if not weeks, and would have had a lot of manual steps. But by automating that entire process, I'm now able to kind of squeeze the distance between problem and resolution. And I haven't done anything more than just add intelligence to that path and teach the path how to add value to my company's bottom line.
So I like the idea of the using existing things as well, because in data science, what it's all about is controlling variables. You don't want to be testing everything new in one go, and the agentic tools are new, and that people have got to build up trust in them. So, we were talking the other day about like a fraud advisory agent, so it would detect fraud and report it early. And I was saying to the team is that you've probably got a whole set of dashboards already written that do all this. So just point it at that data. Don't start from scratch. Test the agent first, and then if it's not doing what you want, then change the data. But don't change it all in one go. So yeah.
How many? Okay, let me just ask a quick question for the audience. How many people have tons and tons and tons of just PDFs, files, invoices, contracts that are just stored in a file folder somewhere in a big filing cabinet? Right? I know we do. That's a gold mine. And the way to mine that gold mine is to basically bring it here to Teradata and say, please scan everything, extract all the data, turn it into metadata, turn it into embeddings, put it into Teradata. Now I'll be able to interrogate that information and maybe even append it into like a RAG application or a RAG use case to things I already have. So it's a really easy get started process of like, I'm just going to bring you, trays and trays worth of paper or digital PDFs that I can use. And there's 3.3 trillion PDFs generated per year. So there's just an enormous amount of data that has not been added to the corporate information hierarchy, the knowledge base, the corpus that we could potentially use to power not only future AI applications, but agents as well.
And there's no one better than Teradata who has your data absolutely secure. For the last 45 years, they've been doing that, and data continues to grow. And I think at that scale, if you're running several queries, you want to get the best bang for your buck and performance as well.
Yeah.
So combine all of that together, you have a perfect solution.
I think one of the things we really add to that is obviously the context.
Yeah.
It's taking that,
Yeah.
the insight from the complex data types like PDF, and then adding the structured data to it. So if it was a complaint, it's not just what was a complaint about, it was who complained, how often do they complain, what's their customer lifetime value, what's their next best offer, how do they like to be contacted, who else is likely to complain. All of that is where you get the real business value from it. Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Anthony, Nima, and Chris, for this excellent, rich discussion. Would you like to just give any closing remarks and call to action for our customers? You can give also any closing remarks, what you have.
No, I think it's been a pleasure being here at Possible. First time I've been here with this amazing team. I think we work day in, day out with a massive team. And at AWS, we've got our sales leader. If you've not met, Christian Conway is around. And then we have SA leaders in the room too. And it's a massive team. So I urge the customers out here, if you want support from AWS or Teradata, we have the best of people in the room, and NVIDIA is here as well. We have a massive presence. So it's all about putting all these A-team solutions together and then getting the best value for your business. And we're always here with you guys through that journey. So you don't have to feel left out, and you have the best of 3 right now at this podium.
Yeah, same here. My advice would be, if you haven't started AI, get started right away. If you're using AI, you're maybe stuck in a rut, ask for help. This is really the future, and you're part of the vanguard that are helping shape your company's trajectory in the future. So good luck, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, and I think, we're all about, we've got booths in the expo area, so come speak to us. I think that's the main thing. Yeah.
And give us new problems to solve. We urge you to challenge us, push the boundaries. If there's gaps in the solution that we have built, bring it to us. And I think that's our motto. We work backwards from what customers want. So we want our customers to actually try. If you fail, we'll help you succeed. Yeah. Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for participating in this session. Thanks a lot also to all the panelists. And wishing everybody a very good success in their AI journey.
Thank you.
Thank you.